Hey everyone! Welcome to today's video. We will be taking a look at Schedule 1 to 10 huge tips that will help you grow your drug empire. Hidden mechanics. The first one is the Golden Skateboard. It is far faster than the other skateboards available in Schedule 1 and is easily the best $1,500 you can invest in the game. I would recommend buying this straight away. I personally thought this was just like a flex purchase, and I only went on to actually purchase this halfway through my playthrough when I had tons of cash laying around, and boy was I wrong. I would go as far as to say, as the Golden Board is also the best way to move around in the game, even better than the vehicles in most situations. But we'll get to that later on. Either way, the point is, buy this as soon as possible. It's easily the most important tool in the game, especially at this relatively low price point. In point 2, we will talk about Knuckle Sandwich meta. If a character kind of breaks, give them a nice knuckle sandwich and they'll usually straighten up and work as intended. Now, what about vehicles? Our point 3. We all come to the point where we wonder what car we should purchase and at what point should we do so. So, let's go straight to the point. The Viper is pretty much the only relevant vehicle in this entire list. The Viper is the white van, and this is the only vehicle with a trunk size of 16 slots. Every other vehicle is going to sit at 4 to 6 slots, with the Dinker having 8. And as far as speed goes, the Viper goes from 0 to 60 kilometers per hour faster than every vehicle in the list, with the exception of the 2 most expensive choices. So, my tip is, if you want to purchase a vehicle, just buy the Viper. You can go and buy the Cheetah in the end game if you really want to, but you'll come to find that you're not really going to use the vehicles that much. You'll just likely rely on your skateboard most of the time. It's also a million times easier to both take shortcuts, as well as avoid police patrols past curfew time with your skateboard. As far as at what point you should purchase the car, I'd recommend buying the vehicle either around the time you purchase the barn if your goal is to use the vehicle to move items around, or wait until you reach the suburbia zone if you intend to use a vehicle for sales. I'll say though, I've maybe used my vehicle a handful of times. It's really not necessary at all, but to each their own. If I could go back in time, I would not have spent any money in vehicles until I hit suburbia. In point 4, we will talk about plant additives. Now, what about additives to our plants, such as speed growth, PGR, and fertilizer? I'd recommend always fertilizing your plants right away from the start. Increasing the quality of your products will make sure your customers are always satisfied, which will allow you to progress through the game quicker and is well worth the investment. And it will, of course, spare you some of the customers get pissed off by the product's quality. And as far as speed growth and PGR goes, yeah, just hold those off all the way until you're making Coke. Because when you're producing Coke, the plants grow extremely slowly and they yield very little amount of leaves. That's where these additives come into play. I still didn't really use speed growth much though, but I always used PGR on the Coke to produce more quantities, and I did find that kept a steady flow going in my production line. For point 5, weapons and combat. Now, to buy a weapon or to not buy a weapon, I have played Schedule 1 for several dozens of hours now, and I have been in one fight that entire time, which I just whooped his ass with my own bare hands, and honestly, combat is nearly non-existent in this game. Unless you're constantly trying to scam your customers or serving poor quality products, you're not really going to need a weapon. Now, as you purchase more and more product from your suppliers and pay them, your relationship with them will improve, and eventually you'll be able to purchase as much product as you want without any limits. It's worth noting that as well. Now, we'll talk about customers' soft budgets in point 6. Now, that may make your eyes light up with dollar signs as soon as you hear this for the first time. But I have to follow that tip up with some potentially bad news. And that is that each customer in Schedule 1 actually has a soft budget that they can spend on a daily basis. So, if you start selling more expensive mixed drugs, they'll just start purchasing less of that drug to kind of match their daily budget. But again, it is a soft budget, and they're more likely to go over budget with mixed drugs as the high prices will sometimes surpass their soft ceiling. But I should still point out that whether you sell basic weed or extremely well-mixed methamphetamine, they'll still spend roughly the same amount of cash per day on drugs. You'll just have to produce less quantity. I will say this though, I recommend everyone try mixing at first, as it's really fun, but it does get old quite quickly. You'll find yourself having to resupply through deliveries nearly every single day, and it's not as nearly as easy to set up an automated drug production line. I found myself stepping away from mixing drugs and only selling base drugs at the end of the game, as I quickly grew tired of the constant resupplying. But everyone is going to have their own play styles. I do enjoy the whole bulk production approach, and it's also a lot easier to set up at a small income disadvantage. I still found myself making more money than I needed, though. Also, it's worth pointing out that the further you progress into the game, the more money each citizen is going to have. For example, there are some customers from the uptown zone of this game that will spend over $3,000 per day on drugs, so it's something to keep in mind. The seventh point is always deliver late at night. Here's a huge tip for your monetary gains. Always choose the late night option to deliver product past the curfew. Past curfew deliveries yield a 20% bonus to the final sale of the product. So, if you're selling $1,000 worth of meth, you'll get an extra $200 due to delivering it late at night. That's easily the easiest money you'll make in the game, especially after you get familiar with police patrols at this time. It's also worth noting that customers don't really purchase multiple times during a day. I don't know if it's 100% the case, but I have tested it multiple times and have never had a customer return on the same day. It seems each customer is capped to one purchase a day. So, again, really no reason to sell at any other time than late night, past the curfew, unless you need the cash. Right now. But, yeah, it's also worth mentioning that customers always buy once a day. Not only are they capped to purchasing once a day, but they will always purchase once a day. Now, for point 8, 4 a.m. delivery cheese. A really cheesy 4 a.m. strategy that you can do is the sales don't really expire when you make the deal at late night times. The sale, since the time will freeze at 4 a.m., will sit at expires in 2 hours and never actually expire. So, you could even schedule all of your sales for late night and even go and make the drugs you might be missing for the sales within this time. Since the sale is just never really going to expire, it's just going to sit there. In point 9, we will talk about excess product. What about when you produce far more drugs than you can sell? I found this to be much more present in the mid-game, where I have tons of cabinets stocked up and no customers to sell to. Well, there's not that much you can do about it, but here's a couple of options. First option is just dumping them on dealers. Dealers are passive income and passive XP as well. If you find yourself with tons of leftover drugs, just make sure the dealers are filled to the brim with stock and they'll handle those sales at their own pace. Now, earlier on I thought that offering deals to Wandering Citizen was a good choice, but it's not. I mean, you can offer them deals, but if you offer a deal to a customer, they'll go ahead and take your deal and then we'll proceed to not order any drugs for the rest of the day. So, I'd probably not recommend doing that. What I'd recommend is this, however. Let it overflow, have tons of stock, and just store them away. As you approach the mid to late game, you start to access wealthier customers. And these customers will buy like 3 to 4 times more drugs than the early to mid-game people. So, personally, I'd recommend turning one of your extra properties into a storage room and stack it up with jar product. If I had done this earlier, this would have alleviated a lot of the extra work in the late game. And finally, suppliers relationship. As you purchase more and more product from your suppliers and pay them, your relationship with them will improve. And eventually, you'll be able to purchase as much product as you want without any limits. It's worth noting that as well. Thanks for watching OTRgamerTV. Please leave a like and comment your favorite game on the list and subscribe.